Well, live entertainment venues were among the first institutions to shut down at the onset of the coronavirus pandemic and will likely be among the last to reopen. But the newly passed stimulus is putting this industry back in the spotlight with the Save Our Stages Act. Joining us now is Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. Senator, so great to have you with us on the show today. By the way, born and raised in Mendota Heights, Minnesota, so very glad to have you with us. So you were a central part of this bill.
I will know my background. I thought my tree was so cool until I saw JD's pink top.
Your tree is great. Your tree is great, Senator. So let's talk about this bill. You're a central part of this Save Our Stages bill. Why focus on venues for COVID relief?
As you said, we're the first to close, the last to open. You can't go stand in a mosh pit in the middle of a pandemic. And they are literally an economic driver in this country like no other. You think about music and movies, you think about theater, one of our biggest exports. And also, I think as people have been alone more and more, they've come to love music more and more, but they have to listen to it alone. And so this is going to allow, and it's not just big towns, it's a lot of little towns, like a mid-sized town, Mankato, Minnesota. You probably never heard of their entertainment venue there, but it's strong. Or the Blue Stem Theater in Mankato, or the Fargo Theater in North Dakota. So this was an incredible effort led by First Avenue's Dana Frank from Minnesota, and it included country western. I got to do it on a bipartisan basis with Senator John Cornyn, Republican from Texas. And while we started small, we ended up with 57 senators on the bill, and we got more funding than we'd originally asked because we also included museums, zoos, and other venues. We have to make sure we don't lose the heart of so many towns in America.
Senator, how do you ensure that there is more focus on these live entertainment venues and institutions going forward? Because as we know, this is not the end of the road when it comes to COVID relief. And we've seen theaters, we've seen Broadway, even cruise lines largely excluded from relief before. But how do you convince your peers that the aid does need to continue for these institutions?
Well, this is 6 months, and it's not loans, it's grants. It's pretty significant because they are literally, most of them, completely closed down. The first 2 weeks of grant applications will be for venues that have lost over 90% of their revenue since the year before, and then to 70%. So you can see what we're dealing with. And I convinced them with economic arguments, and they all know in their own states that they have towns that rely on these venues. And then also, honestly, there was a lot of emotional appeal, and we were able to work out a formula that worked for big and small and stay together as a coalition with so many grassroots fans. And we had everyone from Pitbull to Lady Gaga helping out. It wasn't a bad team, as well as so many bands you may not have heard of that are really depending on these small venues. They can't make it. They're not just someone's not gonna give them a big venue to perform in or a stadium. They start small, just like Prince did. And so that's a story we told. And I got to end my floor speech by quoting Bob Dylan, which I thought was a pretty good line, right? Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block the hall. No one blocked the hall. We got the bill done.
Senator, that's amazing. I do want to switch gears a little bit. You've expressed some concern on privacy of health data, specifically related to Amazon's Halo fitness tracker, including features like an always-on microphone, the fact that users have to do a full body scan to use the technology. What are you most concerned about as far as Amazon or other big tech dabbling in the health space?
Well, there aren't really rules of the road here. The HIPAA regulations that apply to your own health privacy don't apply to these technologies. And we need to have some set privacy rules. And Amazon says, hey, trust us. Well, that's what we heard from Facebook before we had so many breaches, or what we heard from Google and the like. And so I think it is really important that when it comes to people's most personal data, and that's everything from Fitbit on, that we have some privacy rules in place. This is actually a step further as you so well described. People are going to be taking pictures of their bodies. They're going to be, their tone of voice is going to be measured. And I think it is way past time. And this is a bipartisan effort. Senator Lisa Murkowski, a Republican from Alaska, and I have joined together on this. And so it's one of the many priorities in the next year when it comes to tech, including, of course, the antitrust work that must be done, not just in Congress, but the work being done in the Justice Department and the FTC. Because these companies are successful. We love that. That's a great American success story. But competition policy rules still apply to them. They cannot be the gateway and dominating every industry that they guard. And that includes search engines, that includes retail, that includes social media.
Yeah, of course, these antitrust concerns are far-reaching, but sticking with the healthcare space a little bit, you have floated that the FTC come up with safeguards to protect our personal health data, but we're also in conversations where the FTC is looking to potentially unwind these acquisitions by Facebook, which they had previously approved in regards to Instagram and WhatsApp. How do we get to a point where we're not considering backtracking on previously approved acquisitions or measures by these big tech companies and really now become proactive in trying to regulate these big tech names?
Really good point. I think we need to change the laws. I actually I'm the Democratic lead on the antitrust subcommittee in the Senate. I've been working on this for a long time. Right now, we have a Supreme Court that's so conservative. They have turned down so many antitrust cases that it's hard to bring anything, even under the existing law. We can do things to make it easier to prove up these cases. We can do things to adapt our laws to the new environment we're in with the tech companies. So that's a piece of it. The other is getting the resources to the agencies. Senator Grassley and I have teamed up to say, boy, we haven't updated the way these fees are assessed on mergers forever. When we do that, we get more money to the agencies so they can enforce the laws, so they are sophisticated as the companies that they're attempting to regulate. And then finally, it's being aggressive about these suits. And as I am really a fan of what's been going on with these suits, and I think it's okay to look backwards. When you think of the AT&T breakup, when that happened, then that spawned the cellular industry. It brought long distance rates down. You probably weren't even born then, but by taking that AT&T case on, we spawned more entrepreneurship and technology, and AT&T came out of it fine. And so that's what's going on right now. Looking backwards is okay, because when you look at Mark Zuckerberg's emails, you realize that a lot of the reason that these companies were purchased is they saw them as future competitors, even though at the time they were approved. And so it is literally stepping back, looking at an industry, not trying to destroy these companies, just making sure that we have competition in place so we can have the next Facebook start or the next Google start.
Senator, let's look backwards a little bit on Facebook. Just in the last couple of years, we saw data privacy concerns really heightened by the Cambridge Analytica scandal, but we really haven't seen any meaningful change on data privacy regulation for these big tech names for social media platforms in the US. We have seen some measures from Europe and other international regions. Are you confident that we will see change, will see regulation and legislation in the next year on big tech?
I am. We can't wait any longer. And let me tell you something that's driving it. Because Congress has been so gridlocked on privacy, in part because of the intense lobbying from the tech companies and others, we've done nothing really, just minor things here and there. Well, guess what's happening? The states are acting. The states, as former Justice Brandeis once said, the laboratories of democracy. They're passing laws. Now the companies are coming to Congress, I get it why, and saying, hey, we can't have a patchwork. Well, then we need to have a strong federal privacy law. So all of that is driving it, as well as, I hope, more leadership from the new administration, the Biden-Harris administration, to act on privacy and act on antitrust. I have been ringing the bell about antitrust for a long time, and not just with tech, really across the board. And it's time to finally do something about it.
All right, Senator, thank you again for your time. We hope you'll join us again soon. That's Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. Thanks again.